Don't we all just love going to a motorcycle dealership? There's nothing quite like being stared down by 4 different sets of predatory eyes while you casually browse the newest models on the showroom floor. Being made to feel special as the salesperson so genuinely inquires about your life, you think, wow, they're so nice. Maybe I'll go ride with them when this is all said and done. Meanwhile, they're thinking about your debt-to-income ratio, what their commission will be, and if they can manage to get you out the door with a brand new leader bike after you came in looking for a Ninja 500. While not all dealerships are staffed by slimy greaseballs, there are some pretty common lies and techniques a dealership can use to make as much money off of you as possible. So hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll be a little more informed and a little less susceptible to getting raked over the coals. Let's get into it. Let's start off with the big one right at the top. Many dealership salespeople will say, this bike is great for beginners, when more often than we'd like to think, it's not. A salesman at the dealership will often say anything to close the deal. So if you ask whether a certain motorcycle is appropriate for a beginner or not, they may take the easy route and say, oh yeah, you should be fine, instead of taking the time to actually educate the new rider on what type of bike they should be looking for. Because while there are general guidelines that we like to use to classify certain motorcycles as being good for beginners, it's not always black and white. It depends a lot on a rider's previous experience, whether that be with dirt bikes or manual cars, and their maturity and confidence level, and their age as well. So while a good salesperson will nurture this type of dialogue, many will take the path of least resistance and just say, yes, that is good for a beginner. Other times, a salesperson will intentionally try to upsell you a larger or more expensive motorcycle. Dealerships don't typically make that much money on the outright sale of a motorcycle, so moving bikes with a higher sticker price results in greater profit. Or maybe they're a dealership that doesn't receive many manufacturer allocations, so they really don't have the bike you're looking for in stock or on order, and instead of having you walk out the door and abandon the sale, they'll try to sell you on a different bike that is maybe bigger or more expensive than what would actually be optimal for a new rider. And lastly, the salesperson might just be completely donkey-brained and hit you with the old, I started on a Gixxer Thou expensive bike and it was great. If you get a small bike, you'll be bored and you'll want to upgrade in 6 months anyways. Regardless of the scenario, be wary in which the ways the beginner appropriate seems to mean drastically different things from dealership to dealership. So do your best to be an educated buyer before you head to the showroom floor. But chances are, if you're watching Yammy Noob, you're already pretty educated in the ways of motorcycling. Dealerships also have a bad habit of practically insisting that you immediately need to purchase accessories and add-on parts for your motorcycle. If you're a newer rider, you shouldn't waste your time, money, or energy needlessly outfitting your bike with parts. You just need to get out there and ride the darn thing. And for any rider on any bike, you won't really know what pain points you'll find on your machine without getting in some decent seat time. Say you go buy a Suzuki V-Strom 800, and like any true ADV grifter, the salesperson will say, the last guy that bought one had us install a luggage rack, a charging port, a taller windscreen, handguards, an exhaust, a top box, a center stand, and many other mods. But maybe this quote-unquote last guy is doing a totally different kind of riding than you're going to be doing. Or maybe he's just a dummy with deep pockets. Because even if you do ultimately want to modify your bike, you can likely find better parts from aftermarket companies that will be significantly cheaper than buying parts directly from the OEM accessories catalog. The service department may try to inflate the difficulty of installing these accessories too, when in reality, if you've got patience, common sense, and some decent hand tools, you can install pretty much any bolt-on part with relative ease. So the insistence of the dealership to try to sell you a couple grand worth of parts and accessories on top of the motorcycle purchase price is pretty ridiculous. That's actually the perfect segue into the next predatory tactic used by dealerships: extended warranties, service plans, wheel and tire warranties. It's like they say, hey, I heard you like warranties, so you got a warranty for your warranty so you can warranty when you warranty. If you're financing a bike, I'm sure the bank has some sort of interest in making sure your bike stays in somewhat decent condition should they ultimately repossess it if you can't ultimately make your payments. That's why when you get a loan out on a motorcycle, there's quite a few stipulations like carrying a certain amount of insurance. But for the most part, these extra warranties are just cash in the finance department's pocket. Why would you buy a service warranty when a brand new Japanese motorcycle is really just going to need oil changes and chain cleaning for the first 15,000 miles? It's just incredibly simple math. Add up the monthly cost of the service warranty and then subtract a few quarts of oil and some chain lube. Where else is all that money going? Sure, if you want absolute peace of mind after the initial factory warranty experiences, you probably ride a KTM, and you can pay for an extended warranty once the initial one nears expiration. But for most modern Japanese bikes, they're all pretty well-built machines that only require basic care to run happily for a long time. The only one worth paying for is gap insurance, which in short covers the difference between what is owed on your bike versus what your insurance values it at should it be stolen or totaled. But depending on where you live, you can get gap insurance through your main insurance provider, or they have other incentives that'll help protect you for that sort of thing. Like, I know some insurance companies will cover the quote-unquote total price coverage that ensures they pay out the MSRP for your bike for the first few years it's insured instead of the quote-unquote market value, which essentially protects you from being paid out way lower than you paid for the bike if it gets totaled, because they factor in depreciation, that sort of thing, when determining how much they'll pay out. So gap insurance or similar protections can be good if you have a big loan on a bike that you think is going to depreciate a lot. And trust me, it's no fun if you crash your motorcycle and then you get a check from the insurance that's way less than what you actually owe on it, because you're going to have to cover that difference cash. But most other extra warranties are pretty bunk, especially when motorcycles are really quite easy to take care of or fix on your own. Motorcycle dealerships may often bend the truth a little bit to make a deal, but you know who has never told a lie in his entire life? Your Papa Yam! And here's a little irrefutable negative truth for you. Motorcycle tires are filled with air, but where does that air come from? How can you add more when needed? Well, I've got the answer: the Fantic X9 Pro Tire Inflator. Fantic sent me this little unit a few months ago, and honestly, it's a pretty slick addition to my toolkit. It's got a super small form factor, a long battery life, and it can inflate a motorcycle tire in just 30 seconds from flat. The X9 inflator automatically stops when it hits the set PSI, so all you gotta do is screw it onto the valve, set the pressure, and you're good to go. No needlessly stopping and checking the pressure with the gauge, which can be pretty tiresome. The Fantic Tire Inflator has a large capacity battery that allows for 23 minutes of continuous runtime. Other tire inflators can only work continuously for 10 minutes before they overheat and force you to take a break. So that means you can inflate both your motorcycle tires and all 4 of your car tires with ease and with plenty of battery to spare. The Fantic is a great addition to my motorcycle tail bag, especially when taking longer trips. With the Fantic X9, you don't have to worry about lugging around a clunky inflator or making unnecessary gas station stops, and if you're like me and understand the importance of tire health, you should grab a Fantic for yourself. We talked about warranties and insurance. Trust me, getting a Fantic is a cheap set of insurance. Whether you ride a motorcycle or drive a car, the size, performance, and convenience of this unit is really unmatched. To grab a unit for yourself, click on the link in the description and use the code YAMMYX9 to get the Fantic X9 Pro for only 39 bucks. Again, that's YAMMYX9 to get the X9 Pro for just 39 bucks. Thanks for the support, Fantic. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, as mentioned, some dealers may only get certain model allocations, so in order to make room for newer or more sought-after bikes, they have to burn through stock that's taking up space on the showroom floor. Sometimes that means you end up with a good deal on a previous model year bike, but other times the salesperson might actually inflate the demand for a certain model. For example, if you ever see a brand new KLR 650 and the salesperson tells you, buddy, if you want to take this KLR home, you better act fast. These are selling like hotcakes right now. They're lying to you. By fabricating greater demand, they may try to expedite a sale or take away your negotiating power. This is also why it's in your favor to do your research ahead of time and see what the market looks like. If there is a bike you have your heart set on and only one dealership within 100 miles has one in stock or even scheduled for delivery for the immediate future, then you can probably trust that that bike is in fact in high demand and you won't have much room for negotiating. That being said, if you keep an eye on a dealer inventory for a while and notice a handful of bikes that's been sitting in the showroom for a couple of months, it might be worth it to make an offer to see if they'll be willing to negotiate to finally move it, especially if a new year model is about to launch or if it's near the end of the riding season. Now, a few years ago, dealer markups were insane. In the bike and the car market, ADM was out of control. Dealerships were suffering from limited supply due to production slowing down from the pandemic, and combined with an influx of new riders and people wanting to spend time on 2 wheels, they could get away with charging prices significantly higher than MSRP. And since it was kind of universal from dealership to dealership, motorcycle purchasers didn't have a lot of bargaining power. Things have since regulated and there's been more transparency in pricing at motorcycle dealerships due to the fact that buyers have more options as other competing dealerships have inventory again. But there are definitely still some dealers who are still asking insane out-the-door prices on some motorcycles. That's why when a salesperson tells you that this is the best deal you're gonna get, unless they're charging MSRP and have a clear and accurate breakdown of what they're charging and the other fees and that you can compare to other dealerships near you, you really can't take them at their word. Rarely in any sales context is a salesman going to present you their best price first. They take down your monthly income, your debt, your housing costs. They come back with a pretty little number buttoned up into one seemingly affordable monthly payment. But this monthly payment is over years and years and includes all sorts of fees and interest. And then you realize that your affordable $300 a month payment is actually $18,000 over 5 years, and your bike's MSRP was just $11,000. So never think what they initially say is their best deal is that going to be really truly their best. And on a similar note, don't shop by the monthly payment. That's really not a good financial move when it comes to purchasing what is essentially a toy. Dealerships and salesmen have their formulas on what they know you can be approved for from the bank, and some will try to get you as close as possible to maxing that out. Make sure there's transparency in the pricing. Know what your monthly payment is going towards. Figure out how much interest you're going to be paying over the life of the loan. Seriously, some of the interest rates I've seen on some of these quotes for guys on my Discord server are out of control. People paying 16% interest on a freaking motorcycle. Get out of here. Figure out if there's an early principal payoff penalty. These banks make money off the interest on your loans, so just because you can afford the monthly payment doesn't mean you should take that deal or sign those loan documents without really understanding what you're getting into. They always try to go quick in the finance department too. You'll have kick tires in the showroom and grill the salesperson for hours, and when you're ready to close a deal, you'll go to the finance department where someone any percent speed runs through the documents and hands you a pen. So remember, it's not a time test. Ask questions about the specifics of your loan interest rate, lengths, and terms. Know where your principal loan is going versus the interest, and think about how you can pay down your principal sooner to avoid paying through the nose if you got smoked on your interest rate. For example, if you got a loan on a bike for 4 years at, 15% or something crazy like that, try to make a plan to pay it off in 1 or 2 years by accelerating your payments. That way you don't pay all that bulk of interest. The other thing to keep in mind is your interest is going to be paid all up front due to an amortization table. So the sooner you can pay it off, the better. And the last thing you have to be wary of in motorcycle dealerships is your trade-in value. I understand if you owe money on a bike still, trading it in may be the easiest option as they can handle all the paperwork and deduct the value of your bike against what you owe still and get you on a brand new bike for maybe a similar monthly payment. But more often than not, you're going to get completely screwed on your trade-in value. And in almost every situation, it will be financially advantageous to sell your bike to a private seller for the blue book market value and then make a larger down payment on your new bike. And yeah, it gets tricky if your bike still has a lien on it, but that's why you shouldn't have taken an egregious loan that you can just pay outright if you need to. Dealerships don't often have a ton of room to negotiate what they'll pay for trade-ins either, because they don't really make a ton of money on used bikes. The only reason they accept trade-ins is to incentivize you to buy a new model so they can keep moving inventory. But granted, sometimes dealerships can make pretty good coin on used bikes if they're buying them at ridiculously low trade-in values. So don't take the first trade-in offer if it doesn't sound like a good deal to you. Either shop around to other dealers if you insist on trading in, or figure out how to sell it to a private seller and make the most from it that way. So, have you gotten screwed over by a motorcycle dealership, or maybe you work for one? Look, not all dealerships are created equal, and some are very pleasant to work with, and others are massive stains on the motorcycle industry as a whole. Don't fall for the smooth-talking, slicked-back hair, flame-tattooed salesperson at the Harley-Davidson dealership. They're a harbinger of pain and exploitation. The end. Fact: a lightning bolt is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. Goodbye. All right, we're getting some feedback that our outros are a little weird. We had the Rossi amniotic fluid one, a couple oddball ones here and there where I pretend like you're dreaming, but I'm not actually pretending. You are dreaming. And you should probably wake up. Wake up! Kyle! Wake up! It's not real. But you know what is real? MQ9SP giveaway. YamiNoob.co. Click the link down below. You know what to do. It's the best way to support the show. But if you need time to think about it, watch this next video. If I can't convince you right here with this.